Good morning. Today I'm bringing something from Deuteronomy chapter 1. Moses has been in the wilderness for 40 years and he's reviewing and recapping on what has happened during the time since the Israelites came out of slavery in Egypt and made their way on the journey towards the promised land. It should have taken just 10 days, but 40 years of ambling, wandering, grumbling, unbelief, rerouting has resulted in them getting only within sight of the promised land. I've also been reviewing the 33 years I've been at Beulah. Like Moses, there was a sense of initial vision and expectation. God came to Moses at Horeb and said, "You stayed at this mountain too long. It's time to break camp and move on." And I remember back in 1989 that God gave me a vision of a large multicultural church of 1,000 made up from all the communities within Thornton Heath who would come together and worship God with vibrant expectation. We've made slow progress along the way compared to how I initially expected it. The second thing we find in this passage in chapter 1 is that Moses realized the task was too big for him and he delegated. He had a team of people who he was able to call on to do all kinds of ministries, not just Aaron and Miriam, who were able to take on aspects of the Levitical priesthood and encouragement, but also a team of people who would be responsible for helping with all the day-to-day decisions. Years ago, I was in a meeting in Franco from India. I had a vision of a little boy letting go of a balloon and said, "You need to let go of things at Beulah." And so I began delegating, handing over responsibility. Rather than holding everything into myself, pushed everything away. I handed over all kinds of areas for responsibility and just let people do what they felt that God was leading them to do. More recently, I've handed over the church to Joseph so that he can lead the people on, but I'm still very much at home in Beulah and working with the church leadership there to see that initial vision come into fulfillment. The third thing that we see here in this passage is that delay doesn't mean cancellation. The unbelief and rebellion of the people dragged out the purposes of God. And even when they got to the point when God said, "No, none of you are going to enter in," and they said, "No, we'll go," God said, "Don't go." And when they tried to fight with the Amorites, they experienced humiliating defeat. Delay doesn't mean cancellation, however. The next generation was rising up and would fulfill the purpose of God. Joshua and Caleb would lead the people into the promised land. It would happen, not in the way originally anticipated. When I look back on my ministry, the way I thought things would work out and the way things have worked out are rather different. But God has his ways of getting his people from A to B and seeing his glorious purposes fulfilled. If not in our day, in the generations to come. God will work his purposes out. The Puritans used to say, "The mills of God, they grind exceeding slow, but they grind exceeding sure."